In this video, I'm going to show you an entire work session with my 2-year-old filly named Ona. I like to start off her sessions with a little bit of leading with quality. I want to make sure that my horses come with me nicely and that there's no drag on the rope. Right here, I do wish that I had a flag in my hand so I could use it as an extension of my arm and ask her to step up when she didn't come with me as promptly as I wanted her to. Next, I'll go ahead and work on backing. I like to back my horses often, and I like to back them in circles. So I stand to the inside of the circle, and I gently tip my horse's nose away and then apply some pressure backwards. I like to get to the point where I can have an open hand while doing this so I don't actually have to push. But if they do try to push into me, I will firm up as needed to get them to back. So as she's stepping backwards, I focus on the horse's inside hind leg. So this direction right now would be the right hind leg. So as that foot is about to lift up off the ground is when I apply a little bit of pressure. And what that does is it gets her to pick it up and step a little bit deeper to the inside with it. I feel like backing horses really helps supple them a lot. It's going to help when you back them out of a horse trailer. It helps them get their hind underneath of them, round their back a little bit more, and just be all around more responsive. The next thing I like to work on is sending my horse in a circle around me. I'm not a big fan of lunging a horse per se, but I do think that groundwork is really necessary. Circling a horse around is very necessary to work on rolling the hindquarters, moving the front around, and just getting the horse to follow a feel in general. So as she's going around me here, I want to make sure that she's not leaning into me. I want to keep her going forward. This horse does have a hard time with forward motion, and now watching this, I really should have been a little bit more persistent on getting her to keep that forward motion going a little bit better. Having her be a little bit more prompt with going forward, I guess is what I want to say. When I change direction, I always roll the hindquarters away first and then send the front end across. She doesn't need to be trotting here, but I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I just sort of ignore it and continue about what we're doing. The next thing that I'm going to do is introduce Ona to a bareback pad. Now, she's never been saddled, nor has she had a saddle pad on her back, nothing. So I always use a bareback pad first because I feel like it is a transition into the saddle. So it's a smaller step to saddling them. So they get to feel something being attached to them, you know, the pressure around their cinch, but not it's not as big as a saddle. It's easier for me to work with, that sort of stuff. So I think that it's just a much easier step for the horse. So the first thing that I do is I make sure that she's comfortable with it by rubbing it all over her body on both sides. And I don't release the pressure until I know that she has got a soft expression and she's okay with it. After I feel like she's comfortable with it, I go ahead and start working on adding some pressure to the cinch itself. So I'll go on the horse's left side and I'll pull up on the cinch a little bit just to make sure that she's okay with the pressure, and then I go ahead and buckle it. When I do buckle it up, I want to make sure that I get it on so it's tight enough where if she should jump and buck, it's going to stay with her. But I'll tighten it up a little bit and then rub her, let her know that she's doing a great job, and then I'll go ahead and tighten it up the rest of the way. Then I want to just go ahead and let her think about it for a moment, soak it all in, and I pet her, let her know she's doing a great job and she's a good girl. Before I ask her to take a step, I want to make sure that the cinch is good and tight. I wouldn't want it to slip at all, so I just take this moment to tighten it up a little bit extra and wait. Sometimes that first step can be a doozy, so I am very aware of where my feet are and where my horse's feet are going, and I want to make sure that I keep the horse moving forward. And as you can see here, I am doing my best just to make sure to stay out of her way. We've had an experience before where she got away from me. This horse does have a tendency to want to jump up and spin and pull the rope out of a person's hands. So I was very, very cautious to make sure to hold on and keep my feet positioned where I'm a little bit behind her and can continue to drive her forward if she gets sticky feet. She does have a tendency to not want to go forward when she gets worried. Instead, she'll sort of suck back and want to stop. So it was so important to just keep her feet moving forward so she could work through that little situation that she had. Now that she seems to be pretty comfortable carrying that pad, I just want to make sure to send her around a little bit until I know that she's completely accepted it. After that, I'm just going to let her stop her feet, and I'm going to rub her and take the pad off and make it so it's a real just good, quiet experience. I don't want to do it too long or push her. I want this horse to take every little thing in stride, and I want to give her small things to think about each day. So I don't ever want to push too many things on too fast. After a work session, I always like to spend a lot of time just petting my horse, grooming them really good, getting them to be patient and just stand quietly without fussing over other horses. And I like to just take this time just to get to know my horse and have them learn to enjoy the quiet time that we have together. I like to take this moment in between the different tasks that we're working on learning to just sort of let the horse soak and relax and kind of take it all in. I feel like this really helps my horses become more willing to learn and more accepting of new things that I approach them with. The next thing that I'm going to do with her is work on changing eyes. Now, this is something that makes her a little bit nervous. She doesn't like to have the rope be behind her or touch her hind legs at all. And she gets a little bit nervous when I'm suddenly on one side and then on the other. So I like to take this opportunity to just work on changing sides a little bit. And I just continue doing this until I feel like she's in a good spot. So if we only do it once on each side, I leave it at that. Or if we have to do it 8 to 10 times on a side, I just kind of do whatever I need to do that day with where she's at mentally. Eventually, she'll be to the point where this won't bother her at all, and it's not even going to faze her. But for right now, I just kind of, I will break up the different things that we do and do this a few times, and then I'll move on to something else, and I'll come back to this, and I'll keep doing that until it just doesn't faze her at all. I've found this exercise to be very valuable to a lot of horses. Not only does it work on changing eyes and getting them comfortable with you being on one side and then suddenly on the other, but it also helps them get used to a rope going up over their hip, touching their legs, the rope coming up over the head, and just viewing you from a totally different perspective. So I really like this exercise, and I do it with every single horse that I ever touch. The next thing that I'm going to move on to is I'm going to work on getting her to soften and lower her head with just a touch of the halter knot. So I want to make sure that my horses don't have any kind of brace in them anywhere, but particularly when I'm going ahead and asking for them to bridle, I want to make sure that they'll bring their head down really nicely for me. So I start this by adding just gentle pressure underneath the halter knot, and I wait for the horse to bring its nose down, and as soon as they bring their nose down even just the slightest bit, I immediately release the pressure. Then I also will put my hand on top of their poll and ask them to bring their head down that way as well. I want to make sure that any way that I ask my horse to bring its head down, they do give to the pressure. After asking her to bring her nose down, now I'm going to ask her to bring it out laterally. So I'll go from side to side a couple of times and just ask her to bring her nose around laterally. And I'm going to take it a little step further too, and I want to make sure that she brings her nose to the side, but her ears also remain level and her poll stays the highest point. I like to start this as early as I can. With being particular, I don't want her to get into the habit of dropping an ear to the ground. So this is a really important exercise for me because this is the start of our one rein stop, which under saddle, I want to make sure that I've got a really good one rein stop. The next thing I'm going to work on is getting this filly introduced to taking the bridle. So I'm not going to use a bridle at all for this. Instead, what I use is just the lead rope. So I take the lead rope and I flip it up over her head and pull it from the other side up to her mouth, and I'll go ahead and put my thumb in the corner of her mouth until she opens up, and I let the lead rope sort of sit inside of her mouth for a moment. And when she's not working her mouth as much, I go ahead and I let it go. And I'll just work on that until I feel like she's at a good, comfortable spot. I don't want to push it. I just do it until I think that it's a good place to stop. This is a good time now to just work on some ground tying. I like to teach all of my horses to ground tie so I don't have to worry about where I'm going to tie them up. I like them to know that we're just going to hang out here and be patient. So, and a perfect way of doing that, this filly loves to be groomed, so I take this opportunity to run a brush over her and let her just kind of soak it all in and be nice and quiet and patient. She just absolutely loves the whole grooming process. So I use that to my advantage. And since I know that she loves it so much, having her just stand quietly is a perfect way of going about it. Now I'm going to go ahead and work with her feet. I haven't done a lot with her feet. I have roped her legs, so she is really good about giving to pressure on her legs, but I've not really spent a lot of time actually picking out her hooves at all. So this is going to be really important. I need her to stand really quiet for when her feet get done. I want to make sure that she has no issues whatsoever with holding her legs up for extended periods of time. So this is a good time to work on this, and having her be in such a quiet frame of mind is a great time to work on it. I like to mess around with their feet after they've had some good physical and mental work where they're in a quiet, nice and quiet frame of mind. Prior to me purchasing this horse, she spent her entire life on a large ranch in North Dakota, and although the handling that she did have was very good quality, she really wasn't handled very much. I'm very thankful for this because it gives me the opportunity to start her completely from scratch and not have any issues to work through that, any bad habits that she may have learned previously or anything like that. So I feel like I really have a clean slate with this filly, and any bad habits that she may pick up at this point are completely my fault. One thing she didn't like very much was having her head and her ears touched, so I make sure to really handle those a lot. The final thing that I'm going to work on today is teaching my filly to pick me up from the fence. So even though I'm not riding her yet at this point, I want her to get really comfortable with seeing me above her head and getting really good at stepping over to me for when it is time for me to get on her with a saddle. I feel like this is so important for so many reasons. I've had a lot of people in the past bring horses to me for training, and their number one problem was that the horse wouldn't stand still at a mounting block or wouldn't come to them when they were on a fence and trying to get on. I teach all of my horses to do this, and this horse picked on it especially quickly. She gives really well to pressure, but she's always been, as she's given pressure, when she gives to it, as soon as she finds the release, she figures it out that that's exactly what I wanted. And she's super smart in that aspect. So I like to teach them to step away from me when I'm up on the fence. I'll do a little groundwork. I'll back them up. I'll bring them, side to side when I'm on the fence. I work on rubbing their head, their neck, just in general, getting them used to me being kind of all over them from the fence. So I really love doing this with all my horses. I think it's absolutely necessary and a super, super helpful thing for them to know. I really hope that you were able to find this video useful or helpful in some way. I know it was pretty long, but honestly, I had a hard time cutting anything else out because this is the real deal and exactly what I do with all my work sessions with the horses that I'm training. So I felt that everything that was in here was pretty important. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, share it with your friends, comment below, let me know what you thought of it. I'd really love to hear that. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the Versatile Horsemanship YouTube channel. And if you ding that little bell, you'll receive notifications of when a new video is posting. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.